Immerse yourself in the lives of the BYU Cougars. This is Deep Blue. This is Deep Blue with Jason Shepard.
Thanks for tuning in for a new episode of Deep Blue. This is the show where we get to know the person behind the number that you see on the field or the court. These are the true stories of BYU athletes from their own mouths. My guest today, BYU women's basketball assistant coach, John Wardenburg. Coach, I know you have to deal with me a lot, but I do appreciate you being willing to hang out with me just a little bit more.
Shep, thanks. I really appreciate the opportunity. We love all that you do for our program, and a lot of it I know is not publicized enough, but you do a great job broadcasting our games. Our women love you and love how you present, and you do a first class job.
Oh, well, that's very nice.
Yep.
Thank you so much. I
You're
appreciate that. As we mentioned, you're back for another season with BYU women's basketball, but there's quite a bit of changes. You got a new head coach, and I know that you have a special relationship with Coach Lee Camard. What is your relationship like with Lee? Because I know it goes back a bit, doesn't it?
Well, Lee, I recruited Lee. We started recruiting Lee his junior year and went down to Mesa High School in the fall one his junior year. He was late coming in. I didn't think there was any chance that Lee was going to ever be a Cougar. I mean, his whole family are Arizona State people, and you know they among other Pac-12 schools were recruiting him pretty dang hard. But Coach Rose, our staff, all of us, we really worked hard. Summer going into his senior year, I followed Lee around like a stalker, and yeah, we were fortunate. I mean, a little story. We bring him on a visit the fall of his senior year. You know, he's from Mesa, loves heat, always cold. It's snowing. It's a bad BYU football game, and I think, oh my gosh, on the bingo card of recruiting, this is not one we wanted on this trip. But we were able to get him, and he's been a Cougar ever since. Just a great competitive guy, a great people person, and he's going to do a fantastic job.
You know, you've been able to work with him, you know, for the last couple of years on this staff, but now as the head coach, I'm just curious because of the relationship that you have with him and how far it goes back, and the fact that you recruited him and were heavily involved in that, and we're here coaching him. What's that like to see his advancement and his growth into this position?
Oh, extremely proud. I mean, you know, all these players. I've been very fortunate, Shep, to just coach great kids, and you know, Lee is special just because of the fact of what he's doing right now. But you know, he's like a son to me, and I'm very proud of him. Just like I'm proud of my own sons and the lives and the families they're raising and doing. So, you know, he's, like I said, he's going to do a fantastic job. And I'm very fortunate and very grateful to be part of that.
Well, and you came aboard a couple of years ago when the program was transitioning into the Big 12. Mm-hmm. And, you know, playing in a power conference for the first time can mean major growing pains. How difficult of an adjustment was that, not just for the team, but staff, facilities, et cetera, to get ready for the Big 12, which we know is such a great basketball conference, men's and women's? Yeah,
there was a lot of work, and I thought our staff did a great job of preparing that first year. We went through some bumps in the road, and we were competitive. Even last year, I thought, you know, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, but I believe we lost 5 games by 5 points or less last year. I don't have that number in front of me, and if you add a couple of overtime games we lost, and then another game where we were up 11 Cincinnati at the start of the fourth quarter and just don't finish the game. My point is that it's a progression, and we've had growing pains, but we're getting a little bit older, first of all, and I think Lee's going to be able to combine what we have, and I think we're going to take another huge step this year.
This topic is really something that gets brought up a lot with the football team, men's basketball. I'm curious from the women's basketball perspective, how much of a benefit has it been to be able to have you're wearing a quarter zip that's got the Big 12 logo on it?
Yeah.
How much has that helped open some doors that previously would not have been opened?
Well, I'll tell you two areas where I believe it's opened is internationally, being able to go in and tell an agent and parents that, hey, your daughter is going to play in arguably one of the top 2 or 3 conferences in the nation, and she's going to get the exposure through BYUtv, through ESPN, and a family of networks, and BYU Radio, all these kind of things that your daughter is going to get that exposure that she wants so that she can play at a highest level. And then if she wants to go on and play internationally or in the WNBA. So that's one area. And then I think the second area where we're seeing some real improvement is the fact that, probably people that really, really wouldn't want to talk to us in the past, or they're kind, but yeah, it's okay. We're getting a lot of, hey, yeah, what do you got to offer, and what is there about your program? And then obviously the success of our football program and our men's basketball program after the last 2 years has really been beneficial for us. There's no doubt about it.
One of the things about this podcast that I really love to do, besides talking about whatever sport the person is associated with, and there's certainly that side of it, but I really enjoy getting to know more about the person and where they grew up and all those things. The fun part is I know a lot of this stuff about you already because you and I have had these conversations before, and so I kind of know where you grew up. But give everybody an idea what your upbringing was like. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? What type of childhood did you have?
Well, I was born in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. My mom got a divorce when I was about 2 years old, and she wanted to put herself through school, so we moved down to Iowa City, Iowa, and we lived in what they called married student housing there at the University of Iowa, right next to Kinnick Stadium, the football stadium, and they were old Army Quonset huts that were divided in half, and the Quonset hut would have 2 families in each one, and miraculously we were able to get one, even though it was just her and I. And so she went to school at the University of Iowa. A lot of time, I'm so thankful for her because not only does she go to school, she's got to work and do all those kind of things. And for me personally, it was pretty cool because a lot of times she wasn't around, and I could run around and got sugar bites from stealing golf balls at the University of Iowa golf course. I snuck into every Iowa football game, basketball game, all the athletic facilities were right there. And so, quite honestly, pretty ideal childhood that way. It was a lot of fun.
Is that where your curiosity and love of sports started, do you think? If you could trail it back, is that where?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it literally, I was doing something sports-wise every day, pretty much of my life. I was not of that time. I was not a member of the church, and so Sundays was out, just going to the football practice. Literally, the Hawkeye football team practiced right outside our Quonset hut, and learned quickly to pull up this one little corner, and I could sneak in and kind of just made myself invisible, and that part was really fun. But yeah, I love all sports, and probably that's where that got.
You mentioned that for a while it was just you and your mom, but there was a time where that changed.
Yeah.
And you added some family members. What happened?
Well, during that stay, a family just up the pathway invited my mom to come babysit one day, and their last name were the Smiths, and so you pretty much know where this is going to go. And anyway, they had a Book of Mormon on their in their living room, and it just so happened that my mom was taking a class in world religions, and they were talking about Mormonism that week, and so she kind of thumbed through the book, and the Smiths got home. And they said, "Hey, do you want to know more about that?" And my mom, really intelligent lady, said, Yeah, thinking, this will help my class, and et cetera, et cetera. And about 2 hours later, these two guys were on our porch.
They didn't waste any time.
Yeah, no, they didn't. And it was typical Midwest weather: sleet, rain, just bad weather. And my mom is yelling through the door like, "Hey, go away. The Smiths sent us down. No, go away." And finally, they left. And then about a half hour later, Brother Smith and the two elders knocked on the door. And anyway, long story short, my mom ended up getting baptized. And then a little while later, just due to some family stuff and religion, I ended up getting baptized. I got baptized in the Tabernacle in Temple Square, actually.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, there was. I don't know if it still is there, but I was baptized there. So,
wow.
Yeah. And so she graduated from University of Iowa as a teacher in German and an educator. And she took a job in Sheboygan North High School. And so we moved up to Sheboygan area. We lived on a little farm, and she's there about a year or so, and she went to a single adult dance in Milwaukee. We were part of the Milwaukee Stake. The branch we lived in was the Sheboygan branch. But anyway, she went to this dance and came home, and it was a Friday night. Saturday morning, I wake up, and she's on the phone, and like for a long time. And anyway, long story short, she hangs the phone up, says, "Hey, I'm getting married." And I'm like, "Whoa, okay, let's go." Anyway, so in that process, the gentleman that she married, which is my stepfather, he had 4 children from a previous marriage, and so I became from the only child to the youngest of 5, and then about a year later, maybe just a little bit longer, our branch president and his wife came out to Salt Lake City. There used to be a church-wide dance festival up at the University of Utah, and they attended that, participated in it, and then they were driving down to visit a former member of the Sheboygan branch, and they had a car accident and died in Beaver. And their family, no one really wanted to take all 4 children. So my parents volunteered and adopted those 4 kids. And probably in the space of about a year and a half or so, I went from the only child to the middle of 9. And yeah.
How do you honestly? How do you handle something like? You talk about it being a wake up call. I mean, like complete shock to the system.
Well, it was. I don't even know if I still have handled it, but it just, we lived on this farm, and I mean, we early on, my stepdad said, "Hey, we're going to have some cow. We're going to have a cow in the yard when you get home from school today." And I come home, and there's like 15 cows, and he was a master of saying something or hey, signing something and disappearing. But long story short, we ended up a Class A dairy. When I came out here to BYU, we were milking about 90 cows twice a day, and it was a great life. But at the time, I was like, dang, I cannot wait to get out of this stuff.
So what time do you have to wake up in order to do something like that?
We would get up at about 5 o'clock, no later than 5:30, and then milk the cows and then head into school and then come back and participated in different sports and then get back and milk the cows about 6 o'clock, yeah.
I'm sure this will not surprise you at all. I myself have not had any farm work in my life, but I look, people that have gone through that, they just talk about how brutal it is, but it teaches crazy good work ethic.
Yeah.
How did those long hours, whether it's milking cows or other things on the farm, because there's a lot of things that have to be taken care of, how did that benefit you as you grew up?
Well, I think two things. One, we didn't have a lot. In fact, we hardly had any money, I believe. I don't know. But so a lot of it was just, trying to fix things and doing it yourself. But there's a tremendous amount of discipline going on. There were several times when, I had to milk cows by hand because there was an ice storm and the power was out, and you just can't. The one thing about farm life, in my opinion, is you can't cheat it. You just can't, and that's, I believe, in sports too. You can't cheat the game is what a phrase I use all the time, and the same with farm life. So we had these 9 kids, and some were older, and my mom and dad had a son on their, together. So, we had his, hers, theirs, and ours. There are no more pronouns left. But at the time, Shep, I wanted to get out quickly.
Right.
Just, hey, let's go. Let me get out of here. And my parents, I could have gone. Wisconsin is well known for the Division III, universities they have, and I could have played football there in one of those institutions. I got accepted to Georgetown University to go to pre-law, and then I got accepted to BYU. And essentially, my mom said, "Hey, if you think you're going to get any money from us, you're going to go out to BYU." And so that's how I ended up out here.
So was football your sport of choice then?
Yeah. Well, it's the one, I mean, this body I got right now. I mean, first of all, I'm glad it's a podcast and not TV because, like I've told you, I got a face for radio. But that was, I'm 6 foot and I had in dreams of grandeur. I'll go try to walk on a BYU or whatever. But I was.
And you did. You tried out for the football team, right?
Yeah, but it took about 2 hours to figure out that there's just not a chance I'm going to, So all those things, I think, prepared me for what I'm doing right now. There's no doubt about it.
So you go to BYU. So did you go to BYU for a year, then your mission?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
and so take me through that. You're called to serve a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Netherlands, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
What was that experience like for you?
Oh, it was fantastic. Had great companions, great experiences. In fact, every time I go recruit in Europe now, I try to get a little break in Amsterdam, or at least if there's a 4-hour layover in Amsterdam, I'm taking the train into town and checking it out. And but just really blessed, changed my life. There's no if and a buts about it. Changed my life. While I was out there, just knew that I just had just a huge impression that, hey, you're going to work with kids, you're going to work with youth, and you're going to coach, and just yeah, really blessed. I was able to work around the whole country a little bit, and there's a lot of that country I love. There's no doubt about it.
So my situation's a little different simply because I grew up in the church. So I didn't have the situation where I had missionaries come and have that type of relationship and then go serve a mission. I wonder, when you were out serving your mission, did you think about those two guys that came back and realized exactly, had that not happened, you wouldn't be here, those kinds of things?
Oh,
did you have those thoughts?
There's no doubt about it. Yeah, I mean, you did, you're out teaching and we had a gentleman we ended up baptizing from Curacao, and I'm home off my mission about 5 years, and literally he shows up at our doorstep, and I'm like, dang, it was really good to see, and he was married, and I mean, for a country that, at that time, the Netherlands really, baptisms across all of Europe are hard. I mean, it's hard work, but just to see stuff like that, but more importantly, the change it made in my life and our son, our family, being able to meet my wife, and it's a life-changing experience that I'm forever grateful for.
My guest today here on the Deep Blue Podcast is BYU women's basketball assistant coach John Wardenburg. When we come back, we're going to dive into the path to becoming Coach Wardenburg. This is the Deep Blue Podcast on BYU Radio. Family, legacy, and Cougar pride come together on the BYU Radio podcast, Royal Legacy. Host Lauren McLean dives into the deep family ties that run through BYU sports. New episodes drop every Thursday on the BYU Radio app or wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back to the Deep Blue Podcast here on BYU Radio. I'm your host, Jason Shepard. My guest, BYU women's basketball assistant coach John Wardenburg. And before, we were talking about you being on your mission and then coming back to BYU. So you get home from your mission. Did you know what the plan was for you? Did you have an immediate plan, or was it, let's just see how this goes?
No, actually, right before I left, my parents actually had sold the farm, and they were moving out to Utah. And so when I came home, I came back to Salt Lake, or actually to Utah County, and they were living in Cedar Hills. And so I came back and got back in November, and I knew that I wanted to coach. And so I went down actually to the Pleasant Grove Rec Center and met a man named Bill Hoagland, a great man, great person. And Pleasant Grove had a little, they called it a bantam league. It's kind of like they do now. And I just told him, hey, I want to coach. And got in and had a lot of fun and with it, and coached an 8th grade team and a 7th grade team. And through that process, I got to meet some of the PG coaches. Should mention that first day of class here at BYU in January, I met my wife. And
First day?
First day,
oh,
English 115, Shep. And they paired everybody up, and it just ended up her and I. And quite honestly, she had no idea of what sports really were.
Right.
Her dad's idea of sport was to change the carburetor and how fast you could do it. And now, and you go back in those lessons in the farm, one thing I didn't learn very well is like how to use tools and that kind of stuff. Like people who really know me know I'm essentially next to useless, but my wife, she's really good at fixing things and stuff. So we made a good pair. But we met, and I guess I got to be very honest and say I told her I was going to go to law school, and but I knew what I was gonna do.
You were trying to impress.
Yeah, I was
trying
trying to impress
do.
her. And our first date actually was to a BYU basketball game, and it was a lot of fun. And we ended up getting married. And at the same time, I'm going to school, working, and I just made enough connections there in Pleasant Grove that I ended up coaching, volunteer coaching. I did get a little bit of pay eventually. I helped football, basketball, and baseball at Pleasant Grove High School while I was going to school, and just worked for just great men that just were really, really good coaches and taught me so much. Bill Mickelson in football, Keith Allred and Alan Barr and Bruce Bushnell in basketball, and a guy named John Hoover in baseball. They were just good guys and good coaches, and they allowed me to come in and help. And so I was going to school. I was working. I worked weekends at in Pleasant Grove, a place called Mr. G's Gas and Goodies, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and a lot of Sunday nights. I stocked shelves at Macy's up on top of the Orem Hill there going in from PG, and did that twice a week, and just just to survive. I mean, we were at that stage in our marriage that, quite honestly, that, I think all of us go through is like, if we could just make another $100 a month, we'd really be good.
Yeah.
We'd really we got this thing. And but I was fortunate to really get involved. Those coaches allowed me to learn and allowed me, responsibilities, and going to school here, I graduated, and just so happened there was a job open at Pleasant Grove Junior High, and I got hired there. And 2 years later, Payson High School opened up, and I got the job. So,
why coaching? Because you seemed pretty adamant that that's what you wanted to do. Where did that come from, and why basketball? Because obviously you said you played all different sports growing up, but the one you played football, and it felt like you had a lot of opportunities in football. Why not coaching football?
I just loved basketball and loved it, and just probably had more opportunities to do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it just how things worked out. But yeah, so I graduated and ended up at Payson High School, and it was an unbelievable experience, a great journey up to that point.
So you're at Payson High School, but that obviously is still sort of at the very beginning of your journey. Take me through what's next, and then ultimately how you were able to cross paths with the great Dave Rose.
So I'm there, and they hadn't had a winning season, I think, 20-plus years. In fact, the last coach to have a winning record at Payson before I got there was a guy named Roger Reed, and he's a pretty dang good coach himself.
He is.
Yeah, really, really good. And I'm there, and we had some success, had some good players, and it was a great experience. During that time, in the summer, these high school coaches, we'd like to take kids to camps and stuff, and there was this guy down at Dixie College, trying to start up a team camp, and Dave Rose, and so I heard about it. We took our team down there, and Dave was just really good to us, great to our team, and good guy, and his wife Cheryl, just good people. And he loses an assistant to University of Nevada, a guy named Jason Glover, and Dave calls me and asks if we'll be willing to, what do you think? And I just a great opportunity. Now, got hired, I think, for about $12,000 a year, and we ended up moving down there. We stayed about 2 months in a kind of a 2-bedroom, non-heated cabin in Tokerville, and till we found a place. And in St. George, but just I love St. George. I'll be forever indebted to Dave and Cheryl and the people down there. Was just what a fantastic experience down there. We just love St. George.
So we obviously know the story with Coach Rose. Anybody that's followed BYU basketball, you know that he was ultimately brought up as an assistant coach and then obviously got the head coaching job a couple of years later. So tell me about your journey in coming up here.
Well, so I was with Dave. Quite honestly, thought I was going to get hired to replace Dave. Did not. But at the same time, through some circumstances, at the time, I was the interim athletic director at Dixie College. And so the president at the time hired another coach, and I was leading the search actually for the new AD. I've been running the search party for that. And I get called in and says, hey, I'm going to hire this guy. I don't know why, but I'm going to make you the athletic director. Note to those who are listening still at this point, maybe have turned off this podcast, but don't start a job with someone who says, I don't know why. I'm just going to share.
It's not a good preface.
No, it's not a good preface. And so I'm the athletic director at Dixie College and for 2 years. One secretary, but did everything from – and we had great coaches, a guy named Greg Croshaw, coaching the football program, Jeff Kidder, the guy they hired, built on what Dave had and did a great job, and Mike Littlewood, a name that I ended up hiring Mike as our baseball coach.
That ended up quite well.
Yeah. No,
a lot of success.
Yeah, and not just there, but other sports, yeah, it was a great experience. But about a year and a half in, Shep, Pam just sat me down and just said, hey, listen, you either need to – I'm not going to use the term she said, but like you either need to find a coaching job or stop whining because you're coming home and carrying home, and I know you don't want to do it. And she was right. I mean – She was right. And so crazy enough, about 2 weeks later, the head coach at Pineview High School, a great guy named Lynn Christensen, who was the only coach Pineview High School down there had known, announced his retirement. And I got hired and said, you know what, I'm going to go back into coaching. And so I was there for 2 years, and end of the second year, we won their first state title. And that spring, Dave called me and said, hey, you want to come up? And I was like, oh, tomorrow or tonight?
Can I come up right now?
Yeah. And then Cleve called me and went through the whole interview process, and that's how kind of worked out.
Well, and you obviously got to see a lot of the early stages, kind of the foundation for what the modern BYU basketball is. You were a part of that and got to see that. Obviously everyone's going to want you. You were there up until Jimmer's junior year.
That is correct.
So there's a lot of basketball before that. I'll ask you about Jimmer in a second, but what do you hold dear about those times at BYU?
Well, I'm going to tell you that, for me, I feel like I've worked for a Mount Rushmore of great coaches. And I'm not going to get in, but I think Cleve did a fantastic job of trying to right the ship and recruited some really, really good players. And then Dave came in, and I think Dave Coach does not get enough credit for his vision of the game. I thought as I look back now, I believe Dave was 4 or 5 years ahead of his time in terms of his thoughts on offense and pushing the ball and scoring fast and shooting threes. And there's no doubt about it in my mind. But, to be part of, coaching with him down there and then up here, that's what stands out. How Dave just got players and got them to play, to the best, to their skill level. He was great at combining guys and getting them to play well.
You were behind the scenes as we were seeing the ascension of Jimmer. Mm-hmm. And obviously we know what happened senior year.
Yeah.
But take us through how his evolution and what you saw, and how surprised were you, if at all, when you saw what happened his senior year?
Well, I saw Jimmer his freshman year in high school at an event Sunday afternoon, have a couple of hours, and go to this junior high school to watch some games. And this man stops me and says, "Hey, will you come watch my kid?" And here's this chunky dude just scoring baskets. And I was like, that guy, he's got a talent now. And so we recruited Jimmer hard. And again, just like Lee, whole staff, Dave, all of us really worked hard to get Jimmer. He had opportunities, especially late. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you, when he told Dave and I, we were in their house, and they have this house that only has like a 7-foot basement, and we're down in the basement. And they tell us, and we jump up, and dang, it was so great. We were so excited about that. But Jimmer, the one thing I always remember about Jimmer is he didn't play much his freshman year when you look at his numbers. But he came in this day and age, Jimmer probably would have transferred. I would, but he had a list of things. I wasn't privy to the whole list, but he went in and told coach that I'm going to do this, 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 and this. And he came back, body transformed, and, you knew how driven he was to be a great basketball player, and unbelievable.
So after Jimmer's junior year then, is it then that you go to BYU Hawaii?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think I'm trying to think back. I believe, I don't know the exact timing, but I had an opportunity to go out with Ken Wagner, and it was Jimmer, Brandon, that era right there, and there were great players. A guy that Jackson Emery. We had great players, great kids, and loved
like some of the greats.
Yeah,
when you think back on the history of BYU basketball, it was that era.
I'm so thankful for that 9-10 years I was here to have that opportunity to be around those guys and that staff. I will tell you that our staff at that time, especially the last few years, was as close as any staff I've ever been on. We just were locked in on just trying to be good and trying to be great. And it shows in different things like the fact that, our home record. Dave's home record is like unbelievable when you look back at it in terms of at least that stretch right there. And then after I left, he was really, really good at that kind of stuff. So, but Jimmer, you knew Jimmer was going to be driven. But I'm going to tell you one thing, I think, and he would tell you this also, had great teammates that allowed him to do what he does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's part of this game. That's part of the fun of coaching, is trying to get everybody to play together and allow others, allow your teammates to do what they do best and not feel bad or not be jealous or whatever. Yeah.
So we mentioned BYU Hawaii. You guys had some pretty good success. You make it to the D2 title game?
Yeah. It was a crazy deal, but we had this kid named Jet Chang that could just score the ball, and another kid named Marcus Whippy that led the nation in rebounding in D2. He was about 6'4", and just a tough dude. But again, a good group of guys that as the season went on, you know, they just gelled and played better and better. And another guy, you know, there's another coach that I was fortunate. I think a guy who, you know, in terms of LDS coaches, a guy that probably doesn't get enough credit is a guy named Ken Wagner, who, you know, just found a lot of success everywhere he went. A really, really good coach.
So how did you find your way then to Indian Hills Community College? Because you go there as an assistant, but eventually
As the
you
head
take
coach.
over as the head coach.
Yeah. Now my sons would tell you my favorite son, even though a guy named Barrett Peary, young guy, actually when I got hired at Payson, he was a senior. And in fact, our youngest son is named after him. And his middle name, our youngest son's middle name, is named after another kid at Payson, Jimmy DeGraffenried. But anyway, Barrett had just been hired at Indian Hills, a high-end junior college, one of the top 3 or 4 or 5 in the nation, and called me and said, "Hey, can you come out and help?" And, you know, I'm from that area. It's, you know, interesting enough, it's amazing how the church is, but when my mom, I mentioned earlier, joined the LDS Church, it was a branch in Iowa City, and we met in the Student Union building at the University of Iowa in the basement. Well, so I'm kind of from that area, and now there's a stake in Iowa City, and it's just crazy how that is. But anyway, you know, Barrett called and asked if I'd come out and talked with Pam about it, and we decided that something new, something different, and got a chance to work for another person, a guy that I think is a great, great coach and way different. You know, the kids we coached, way different than what I've been doing in terms of, you know, the culture, and was an unbelievable experience. Fantastic. Great fans out there, great school, and it was a good experience.
And then eventually you take over as the head coach then.
Barrett gets hired at Arizona State, and I get hired, and probably it was a great, you know, I get hired as the head coach, and then you know, about 9 months later, I'm actually released. And that's probably one of the low points in my career, is that, and, you know, we were 29-5 and made it to the JUCO national tournament and did some great things, but just you know, I will always say, Shep, that this coaching is a great profession. It's a bad business. It is a bad business sometimes.
So how did you handle that? Because that's hard for anybody.
Oh, it was tough, and you know, it was tough, and I think probably, to be very truthful, probably still struggling a little bit from it, but handled it physically horribly, because I eat bad the way it is without adding stress to it. You know what I'm saying? And we ended up deciding to move back to Utah. I got hired at Westlake High School and had a great experience there while coaching, and you know, very fortunate, and I hope it comes across. I've been very lucky to have an unbelievable wife and family that, you know, was very supportive. I'm there about April, and a guy named Todd Simon gets hired at Southern Utah, and I call him, and one thing leads to another, and I end up getting hired by him. I was his first hire at Southern Utah. So I don't know if that's a great answer, but relied on the Lord some, a lot. Relied on my wife a lot. And, yeah, it's just part of coaching sometimes. A lot of times it isn't, you know, I probably, if I were to critique myself, I put way too much on myself and blame myself, and sometimes you just don't have control over things.
Yeah, that's right. It can be a helpless feeling sometimes. That's why
yeah,
relying on the Lord is really the only thing we can do.
Yeah.
Because we know He's got a plan for us.
Yeah.
Even if we don't know what that is, or maybe don't want to know what it is.
There were a couple months there in a row where I was like, all right, what plan do we actually have here? So,
well, what did it mean to you then to be able, as we kind of bring this back to the present, what did it mean to you to be able to come back to BYU, this time with the women's basketball program?
Well, so, kind of just to wrap this career up, I go to Southern Utah. I'm the associate head coach there. Southern Utah wins the Big Sky for the first time ever. And I'm there, and my third son, Adam, doesn't listen to his dad, gets into coaching, and he gets hired as the head women's coach at Southern Virginia University while I'm at Southern Utah. They have COVID, and he doesn't get to coach his first year. And that's a D3 school, no scholarships. It's hard. I mean, that's a hard thing to do. Anyway, long story short, I ended up, he calls and asks Dad, would you come, be willing to think about coming out? And I'm kind of, don't know, just to have that opportunity to coach with your son was something that I couldn't, it was really kind of a great it was a great opportunity. So I go out to Virginia, live with them. My wife stays here, has a fantastic job. But after 2 years, Pam and I are driving home from Virginia after the second season. I just said, hey, sweetheart, I can't. This isn't good. It's not, I mean, it's great living with the grandkids and them, but it's just not right. And as luck would have it, Todd Simon leaves Southern Utah. The guy down there calls me and asks if I'd come back and help. And a day or so later, Coach Whiting calls me, and it was kind of a little bit of an answer to prayers.
Coach, thank you so much for being willing to do this. This was a lot of fun. I love being able to hang out with you. I've really enjoyed working closely with you and getting to know you better. And I'm going to be honest with you. You mentioned, you told a story today that makes me feel even more close to you. I feel closer to you than I've ever felt before because I, too, am the non-handy one in my marriage. My idea of fixing something is calling someone to fix it. My wife is the handy one. She grew up in a very handy family. I did not. So you and I have that in common.
It's almost laughable, the ineptness that I have with anything to fix. I'm going to tell you that. Let me just finish with one thing, Shep. I hope you don't mind. Over the last 2 summers, I've been able to, recruit, and quite honestly, I've traveled the world a little bit trying to help put this team together along with our other staff. But one thing I will say to all the Cougar fans out there, this brand we have at BYU is worldwide. And I'll just a real quick, and I texted this to our staff. A couple of weeks ago, I traveled from Seattle to San Francisco with my wife along the coast. And then the next day, we got back on Sunday. Next day, flew to Europe for recruiting for about 10 days, well, about 14. And almost every day, not almost, somebody would come up, go Cougs. Like, I'm in Romania, go Cougs. I'm in Turkey, go Cougs. I'm sweating just sweating on Mount Rainier, and somebody walks by, go Cougs. And like I might only have a little hat on or I love these shoes. We have these canes that we wear. No sponsorship, by the way. But anyway, but it's amazing the reach of the BYU brand, and I am so thankful and grateful to be part of it.
Well, Coach, thank you so much.
Yep.
You're a great man. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for doing this.
Yep, thank you.
All right, my name is Jason Shepard. Ben Hall produced this episode. Deep Blue senior producer is Cleon Wall. You can download and subscribe to Deep Blue on all podcast platforms or find all episodes on the BYU Radio app. Deep Blue is a production of BYU Radio.